Tonight, we show what that planet looks like through the lens of the Natural History Museum's Wildlife Photographer of the Year competition. The images tell the story of nature in a ghastly crisis. As the world comes together to meet virtually today, the stakes could not be higher. The last global biodiversity targets set in 2010 were missed by every country by the deadline last year. In what's been called the lost decade, more of life on Earth has been pushed to the very edge of existence. Tonight, with exclusive access to the Wildlife Photographer of the Year contest, we show the impacts of the unfolding climate and ecological crisis in which we live.
In the last couple of years, what we're seeing is that more and more we're receiving documentary images that really look at climate change and the environmental threat that the planet is facing. We can see the beauty and the drama, but we also see the threats and the human impact that we're having on the planet. And so for the 57th edition of the competition, I've decided to bring two new categories connected with climate change. These wildlife photographers, I consider them warriors. They're out there in the field documenting really vital stories that the world needs to see.
In Australia, unusually extreme heat is leading to mass mortality events.
The image I capture shows grey-headed flying foxes in a behaviour called clumping, and this happens when they get really, really hot and they try and move away from the heat and they get behind a tree. But the problem with this is it creates a negative feedback loop and they get hotter and hotter, and eventually one will fall and knock the rest to the ground, and so they'll be lying on the ground dying from heat stress. And grey-headed flying foxes are vital keystone species. They help disperse seeds and pollen for about 100 plants across Australia up and down the east coast. If they became extinct, we would start losing parts of our forests, and from that, other species. For example, koalas.
In Kenya, floods in what should be the dry season are threatening not only human populations, but wildlife too.
I don't remember actually clicking. Obviously, I did take the photographs, but I don't remember it. All I do remember is shouting, "Oh my God, they're going to drown, they're going to drown." The village elders had actually never seen such a bad flooding in their lifetime. It's usually nice and dry during that time of the year, but it had been raining non-stop for 4 to 5 months. When they finally did make land, it was this joyous moment, and we just couldn't believe what we had witnessed. We were hugging each other, we had tears of joy, and it was just an unbelievable moment.
And it's not just in tropical countries that wildlife is struggling. It's happening here in the United Kingdom too.
When I came across this seal, I did want to take obviously the photograph of it, but my primary concern was its welfare, because it was obviously in a great deal of distress and a great deal of pain. We managed to contact the relevant people who came out and rescued it, but it really saddened me to think how many other seals that we don't come across.
While filming Mick, we saw for ourselves a seal with fishing wire wound tightly around its neck, and had to call the same rescuers who had saved the seal in Mick's photo.
And we seem to think that when we watch TV and we see things in far-off places, and we seem to assume that these things happen in other countries, but actually it's happening right here and it's right on our doorstep. It certainly gives us something to think about when we think about the damage that humanity's doing to the planet and the impact it's having on the wildlife.
Around the world, teenage photographers are concerned about what's happening in wildlife on their doorstep too.
L'Apollon, c'est vraiment mon papillon préféré. J'ai découvert pour la première fois il y a 3 ans dans les Alpes. C'est un papillon qui est très présent là-bas, mais malheureusement chez moi il est en voie de disparition à cause du réchauffement climatique. Nous aujourd'hui on est la première génération à vraiment avoir à subir les conséquences du réchauffement climatique, et j'aimerais tellement que les gens se mobilisent pour changer les choses, vu l'urgence de la situation.
Scientists record climate change by tracking butterfly movements. As temperatures increase, mountain-dwelling butterflies are being forced to higher and higher altitudes in search of cooler environments. Soon they'll have nowhere to go.
So this is the Apollo butterfly, like the one featured on the exhibition photo. Butterflies and moths are the food for many, many organisms, including birds, spiders, lizards. So if they're not in the planet, we will probably lose the next level of the food chain of these big animals also. They will be suffering too.
Museum researchers are gathering data on how biodiversity is responding to human activity.
As we transform our landscapes, we're essentially suffocating biodiversity. When we remove habitats that the creatures around us rely on, they lose resources. And so species have to live in a much smaller area, or they have to adapt to survive in the human-dominated spaces.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, primate populations are being destroyed due to human activity. Firstly, habitat destruction, and then by being hunted. As for many, bushmeat is the principal source of affordable protein.
For the last nearly 2 years now, we're living through COVID. COVID is a zoonotic disease. It came because humans consumed animals they shouldn't be consuming. So not only are we losing these animals and their habitats, but we're also threatening ourselves through not paying attention to this issue. So my story is about the Wiro chimpanzee sanctuary. Those chimps come from the illegal bushmeat trade. And these little chimps climb into your lap and take your hand just like a human baby would. That's quite moving, you know. It definitely reinforces your sense of purpose in doing this kind of work.
We want to create impact and action. Every person that connects with these images, we really want them to rethink their individual behaviors. And I really hope that people look at these images and take a stance.
If an image doesn't get people to start doing something or stop doing something or change what they're doing, it's a little bit of wasted opportunity. So a lot of my work now is very much driven around trying to take an image that will drive behaviour, because for me, that's the power of great imagery.